This is the answer key for worksheet naming Stepwise. This has both ionic and covalent compounds, and we're going to determine if a compound is ionic or covalent by looking at where the atoms in the formula happen to live on the periodic table. For a generic periodic table, we have metals on the left, nonmetals on the right. The one exception is hydrogen, which lives over on the left side, and that's actually a nonmetal. So carbon and oxygen, that would be a covalent bond. This has 3 or more atoms, which would make this one ionic. That's a metal to a nonmetal, that's ionic. A metal to a nonmetal is ionic. Another metal to a nonmetal, that's ionic. Metal to a nonmetal is ionic. 2 nonmetals, covalent. A metal to a nonmetal is ionic. 3 or more atoms, that makes this thing ionic. Nonmetal to a nonmetal is covalent. Nonmetal to nonmetal is covalent. Metal to a group of nonmetals is going to be ionic. Metal to a total of 3 or more atoms. 3 or more atoms, ionic. 2 nonmetals, covalent. We have 3 or more atoms, that makes this one ionic. 3 or more atoms, ionic. So for the next column, it says if covalent, which means anything that we wrote ionic next to, we can cross off. Like so. So up at the top, we have carbon and we have oxygen, and we have to look at the subscripts attached to both. We only need a subscript on the first atom if the subscript, or excuse me, a prefix in the first atom if the subscript is 2 or greater. And this one is only 1, so we don't have a subscript here. Greater than 2, so therefore no prefix. Second one, prefix for 2 is di. Moving down, we have 2 copies of N, 5 copies of S, so this one we need a prefix for both. Di and penta are the 2 prefixes. Next one, we have 2 copies of phosphorus, 3 copies of oxygen, so di and tri. We have 2 copies of nitrogen, 1 copy of oxygen. Here we need di. The second atom is always going to get a prefix for us, so that's mono. Then the last one, we have 1 copy of nitrogen and 3 of iodide. So nothing for the first atom, prefix tri for the second. Putting this all together. Now, when we name compounds, it's normally best to try to group the types so we don't over-apply rules. So we'll just do all the covalents here first. So since we don't have a prefix on the carbon, we're just going to write the full first name. That's how it is for all of our naming systems, carbon, and then di, which we identified right here. Oxygen turns to oxide, dioxide. Dinitrogen. Penta with sulfur turns to sulfide, so penta sulfide. Diphosphorus. Then we have prefix tri. Oxygen turns to oxide. Here we have dinitrogen. And then we have mono. And then we have oxide, so we write down monoxide instead of doing a double O. And lastly, we have only 1 copy of nitrogen. We listed that as no prefix. And then the prefix for 3 is tri. Here we actually double vowel, triiodide. So again, naming all of the covalents together, so we just say, hey, we're using prefixes. And it's worth pointing out that most worksheets won't ask you to do this right here, but that's a really good way to make a complicated problem simpler. For ionic compounds, we just name the two parts. So for us, we're always going to have a first part, a cation, a metal, and then a nonmetal. So you can split them after the first atom, where we know our two ions exist. So calcium is the first ion, and then ClO4 is called perchlorate. And you either have these things memorized, these ion names memorized, or you look on the back of your periodic table. Al and S, we have aluminum, and S is sulfide. Zn and OH, we have zinc, and we have hydroxide. Ag and Br, we have silver, and then we have bromide. K and Br, we have potassium and bromide. Li and then I, we have a lithium, and then we have iodide. We have a Ca, and then we have a CO3, so we have a calcium, and then we have carbonate. Again, I have these ions memorized. You can look at them on the back of your periodic table. The left-hand particle will be on the left-hand side of your resource. The right-hand particle will be on the right-hand side. So we have zinc, then we have nitrite, followed by strontium, nitrate. Those last three letters of each of these names, got to really write those clearly because nitrite and nitrate look awfully similar if you write quickly. Barium, and then SO4 is sulfate. Finally, aluminum, and then carbonate. And there you have it.